This is Bawdens in the beautiful parish of St. Andrew, starting point for one of many historic parish hikes hosted by UWI, aka University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. This was hike number 2 for us in Barbados, and it was going to be different. Different parish, different geography, and the fact that the soil is clay-like and it poured rain the day and night before, well, yeah, it was going to be slippery and messy. Our guides saw to it that we didn't slip slide too much or fall into a riverbed. They were really attentive and knowledgeable. And the best part of it all, well, we all had fun.
So if you have a question along the road at any point, look our Facebook page and we'll bring it. After that, we're going to have a couple of locations that we're going to very beautiful, very muddy, and definitely history attached to it. For instance, behind us, we have this pond. We're in the area known as Bawdens Pond. Originally, this area would have been known as Broom Hall Plantation in the 1650s, and that would have been owned by John Parish. It shifted to a couple of hands, eventually landing into those of Sir John J. Alleyne. To the Barbadians here, does that name sound familiar, John J. Alleyne? What's the most known associated place with the name Alleyne?
School?
Well, there's the Mount Gay, yeah. That was renamed from Mount Gilbo to Mount Gay in honor of John J. Alleyne. But there's also the school. That's probably one of his biggest legacies, the Alleyne School. And we'll talk about the Alleyne School a little later on the road. This area that we're in is the parish of St. Andrew. And St. Andrew is known for what? Clay soil, correct. So as you go along, you'll find that the composition of the soil underneath your feet may look a little different from when you're walking in other places, and that's because of the clay properties that you can find here. The history of clay in Barbados itself is actually very exciting. It would have started with our Amerindian ancestors. The Amerindians, as you guys would have known, would have been here multitude of years ago. Mostly they're known for giving us our first name, Ichiro Naim. Some of you who may have been on these hikes before would have heard that name before. And that name is given to us because of St. Andrew. Ichiro Naim means of red skin and white teeth. When the Amerindians discovered Barbados, they would have come along our eastern coast, unlike our British ancestors who would have come along the west coast side. They came from the eastern side. So they would have seen the red clay hills of St. Andrew first, which is the red skin, and the white teeth because the waves are always forming in the eastern part of the island. So red skin, white teeth, Ichiro Naim, the original name of Barbados. The clay that they would have had here would have been pottery that they would have created for household purposes. Most notable would have been that of the well, the 7-pot well, which was a system they did by digging holes in certain clay pots that had no bottom and then allowing water to rise up. It said that the pot at the top actually had a curved lip, and that helped to stop things from falling inside of the water, kind of giving them an opportunity to find fresh water because Barbados is not a freshwater island. They would have also used clay to help create figurines of their deities. If you ever get the opportunity to visit the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, you can find some examples that have been dug up from different locations around the island, most notable Haywards in St. Peter, and you can see what they would have created. In terms of our history, a little nearer to where we are now, during the days of slavery here on the island, pottery would again still be used for practical purposes. It would have been for creating pots, and eventually the main part for pottery here on the island would have been clay sugar molds. Now, before the clay sugar molds, wooden molds were used, and that was the same across many of the Caribbean territories that had sugar cane. However, as Barbados took on a level of importance for sugarcane that many islands did not, meaning it was our all in. We were all in on sugar. You want to grow corn? No, sugar. You want to grow something else to eat? No, sugar. So much so we even had in around the 1650s, we call it the sugar rush, to the point where no other plantation was planting anything else but sugar, and eventually people on the island were starving because in 1650s we were actually held siege by Lord Cornwall. and we are heavily dependent on imports and exports, and therefore nothing was getting out, so we were all starving on the island because no one had planted or had the foresight to plant anything beyond sugar. All they were thinking about was money. And because of that greed, they wanted to expand the plantations, which meant cutting down the wood source. So we could no longer use wooden sugar molds. And that made clay become that much more important to the sugar industry, so they created those sugar molds. To the point where plantations had their own clay factories and potteries on their plantation. Codrington Plantation would have been a great example of that. They had one that was called Codrington Estate Potteries, and that was a workshop located right on their property. So clay, what we'll be walking on, and sometimes we take it for granted because we think about ceramics and that's just an everyday something for us, was actually a very important tool and skill here on the island of Barbados. We had about 96 places on the island at one point that would have dealt in clay, but now we're down to how many? 3. Hamilton Earthworks, and there's another one I can't remember the name of right now, but those are 3 properties that we have that still operate using pottery here on the island of Barbados. So I think that's a good bit of information here for your first stop, and we'll join our hike leader on to the next.
And we're in the Scotland district.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.